Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our virtual event, GST Panchvarsh Journey So Far and Road Ahead, which we are organizing on eve of 5th anniversary of GST. So as we complete 5 years of GST today, I feel that 5 years is a pretty long period to discuss or to assess success or failure of a reform. So today we'll deliberate whether GST was a success or a failure, or was it somewhere in between? And we keep organizing a lot of webinars in which we discuss technical issues. So this time we thought of a very different format. So we thought, let's have a panel discussion in which we have invited tax professionals of India's leading corporates, in which we will discuss how has been their GST experience so far, what are their expectations from the future, because all these professionals, they have seen how the tax regime was there when GST was not introduced, what sort of challenges were being faced. They successfully transitioned their companies into GST regime with all transitional portal related issues. And for last 5 years, they are juggling with GST with all legal compliance issues, etc. So we'll have this in the form of a panel discussion in which we'll discuss 5 major issues. Our focus will be more from a macro perspective rather than instead of pointing out to a particular issue. So the format of today's discussion is that I'll be the moderator. I will ask each of the panelists about their views on that particular question, and thereafter I will sum up. Firstly, I'm sincerely thankful to all our panelists. So today in the panel, we have Mr. Hiren Desai, who heads tax function in CA Tires. We have Nilanjana Sur, who heads tax function in CNH Industrial. And we have Mr. Amya Kumar Singh, who heads taxation in Higher Appliances. So thank you very much, Hiren, Amya, and Nilanjana for taking time, and look forward to your thoughts in this session.
Thank you, Puneet ji, for inviting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will close the session with live Q&A, and again in Q&A, we'll request that you can confine your questions to broader issues relating to GST, and refrain from asking any particular technical issue as well. So starting the session, so as a run up to our session, we run live polls on social media platforms, and we got a lot of responses. Starting with the poll results, and this will give an idea as to how industry in general is having experience about GST. So the first question which we asked people was that, did GST meet expectation of being good and simple tax so far? And these are the results. 8% people felt it met, 54% people felt partly, and 38% people felt not at all. So in my view, these results speak for themselves, and it's not quite a rosy picture, because at least 92% of public feel that GST has not met their expectations. And we are talking about a taxation regime where governments and taxpayers' endeavor is always that there is a certainty in tax matters. But yesterday only we had a GST Council meeting, and so many changes, whether it is relating to rates, whether it is relating to legislations. So I also feel that it has, at least till now, not met the expectation of being a good and simple tax. The second question which we asked the public was, did GST eliminate cascading effect of taxes or not? So these are the results. 17% public felt it did, 76% partly, and 7% not at all. And again, this is quite concerning that the whole objective of introducing GST was to avoid cascading effect of taxes, and 83% public feels that it has not eliminated. Third question which we asked was, have litigations in GST regime increased as compared to GST, to pre-GST regime? And S of GST, which was coined by our Prime Minister, was to be simple. And again, we were expecting very less litigations in GST, but 64% public feel that it has increased significantly, and 19% felt that it has moderately increased. So quite concerning that even it is not turning out to be a litigation-free regime. The next question which we asked was, which issues do you wish government to clarify in near future in GST? So yes, cross-charge versus ISD, which everyone has at the back of the mind, 61% public felt that should be the issue, and then employee recoveries and discounts. Now, the last question which we asked was, do you expect better GST regime in next 5 years? So 74% people felt yes. So we live on hopes and look for a better future. So, so these were the poll results, and give some idea as to how public is feeling about GST. And I'll not take much time further, and we will come straight to this panel discussion. So we have 5 questions, and I'll request Nilanjana, Hiren, and Amya to share your thoughts. So the first question we had was, GST was introduced with many commitments from government side, and there were high expectations from industries end for simplification of indirect tax regime. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate GST regime in meeting those expectations? 1 or 2 expectations that GST regime has actually achieved. So I'll start with Nilanjana. Nilanjana, what are your thoughts? How much marks you want to give to GST, and some things if GST has actually met for you?
Puneet, so typically, see, I would not like to give a rating as such because it is very difficult. It's very subjective. But so let me start with the more positive thoughts. Of course, the few things which I believe GST has achieved is, removing multiple taxes which were there at various levels and integrating it into one system. Although we were expecting one single tax and we have been given 3, but I think it is still better than having those multiple taxes, and then which did not talk to each other, and there were so many complexities. Especially for product companies, I think it was even more because we had excise, we had VAT, CST, service tax of which we never got the credit. I mean, there were so many complexities. So I think to some extent that has been taken care of under GST, though not fully. Then and the credit, I mean, of course there were no credits between each of these taxes, and whatever was there was also very limited and restricted. So that's one area I see a positive move with GST. However, in the last 5 years, and 5 years is not a small time, but the law is still not, it's still evolving. I mean, we haven't reached a finality. There are so many issues, and the issues keep on growing by every day. I mean, every day we see new issues coming up. The government itself keeps making so many changes that we see one new area of litigation opening up. Like you mentioned, yesterday's GST Council meeting, I'm sure we'll find multiple litigations, coming up after that as well. So I think, that is one thing. And of course, every company looks at when they want to set up a business in a country, they look at ease of doing business, which is now completely gone. I think with GST, we cannot say it is easy to do business in India. It has become very, very complex. So that definitely, especially for MNCs, it becomes a challenge. So like you said, a good and simple tax was the expectation, but whether we can call it simple or not is the question. It is definitely not.
Great. No, I think I fully agree with you. So maybe you have not given the rating, so I'll put somewhere in 5 only. I think most of us will lie there only, closer to passing marks. Yeah. So, Hiren, what are your thoughts, your experiences?
So I'll put it this way. When GST was getting introduced in 2017, I think there were a lot of discussion whether this will survive. We also came to know about certain countries who had implemented GST and then they have rolled it back. We are sitting here after 5 years, we are celebrating the anniversary. So that credit has to go to the government, that despite, and also to the people, to the assessees who has really, taken all the hardships to ensure that the GST is a success. Now, what I'll say, I'll endorse certain views, what Nilanjana has said, that it is a work in progress. We have not reached the perfection that we had anticipated when this law was introduced. But look at the scenario in 2017. We had multiple taxes, multiple rates. We had some additional costs just to make an interstate sale from one state to another. That cost has gone. There were a lot of forms that were required for a movement of goods. Those forms have gone. So if you look at it positively, definitely there has been considerable improvement what we were doing in 2017. So for that, I will give good marks to the government. Now, one point is always about the good and simple tax. Very frankly speaking, we always compare for us, the good and simple tax is what we see in Singapore or some Western country. But we have to understand that India is a large and a diverse country. We will reach there, but it's going to take time. I feel I will definitely go beyond 5. I'll give at least 7 marks to the government for introducing this, for putting all the hard work. Of course, as we move ahead, definitely there will be more changes. So I think it is pretty reasonably good effort, though we have not reached the perfection. Maybe over a period of time we will reach that.
Very well said, Hiren. I think I fully relate to what you're saying. So Amya, what's your take?
Yeah, so as far as GST is concerned, rating wise, I would give 8 number. Why? Because this has been a remarkably significant reform by this law. Because all of us know that after independence, this has been the biggest reform of economic reform actually. Again, manufacturer side, as we all of know that excise and VAT CST combined significantly lower than the cost that earlier it used to be. From service tax point, yes, from 15 it has increased to 18, but then the input basket has definitely increased. Right. If not 100%, but the input basket has increased. Right. Further, from government standpoint also, as we have seen that the revenue increasing month by month. So we have seen touching to 1.68 lakhs crore as well. So as we know that we are a deficit financing country, so that providing a cushion to the government. So in a way, though evolving, but it's a very good change. Government trying to resolve some of the issues. A bigger country of this much size and this much scale will definitely have some issue. Will take some time to be neutral.
Right. No, I think well said. So yeah, so I really like the Hiren's thought that no one expected that GST will survive 5 years, and so I think all success goes both to the government and all corporates, including all of you, that we have survived this. So yes, there is a reason for celebrating, and yes, I feel because this question was more tilted towards what we have achieved till now. So uniformity of laws, uniformity of compliances, in my view, is a big achievement. And Nilanjana rightly said that for product companies, it was more difficult because rates of VAT or procedural formalities differed from state to state. So to that extent, whether the law itself is a work in progress is a different thing, but yes, this is the law. So we do not become like European Union that there are 30 countries we are dealing with in our country only. So to that extent, yes, I fully agree that uniformity of laws and standardization of compliances has been a big achievement. Like both Nilanjana and Hiren also mentioned that a lot of cascading effect of taxes or multiplicity of taxes, be excise, VAT, service tax, entry tax, LBT, I think there were many. So all those have been subsumed. Yes, law continues to evolve. I think this evolution process only keeps all of us on edge. Otherwise, we'll become complacent. Apart from that, I feel there is one more achievement in GST regime, which is a digitization. I feel that in the earlier laws, including service tax or excise, many of the things were manual or not integrated in that way. So to that extent, whether those compliances are complicated, that's a different thing, but everything is online, be it your return filings, invoice raising, refund filing, show cause notices, orders. So yeah, to that extent, even this GST portal is a work in progress. And in my view, a bigger achievement is that because everything is digitized, everything is recorded, government is witnessing a significant increase in income tax collections also. Because today, one law or one filing was not speaking to other. Today, many of our clients, they got notices in service tax that in 26 AS income tax return income is coming this much, but your service tax return is showing this much. So I think there's a lot of speaking which is happening between different regulations, which is adding to government scale. Yeah, so I also rate somewhere around 6 or 7 only. So I think I feel 5 years is a good period, but it's not a very long period for such a mammoth reform to settle in. So maybe after 5 years, we'll sit again and just take stock. Have we moved closer to 8 or 9 or not? Great. So with this, we move to the next question, which is, even after completion of 5 years, we see industry dealing with regular hiccups in GST regime since inception in terms of unclear law, multiple changes, complex compliances, adversarial advanced ruling regime, etc. One or two major pain areas that troubles you and which you look forward for a resolution. So I'll start with Hiren this time. So Hiren.
See, the introduction of GST introduced some very new concepts which were different for us, like supply as a concept was introduced for the first time. Now, supply concept came along with certain associated concepts like composite supply, mixed supply. I think which the clarity of that, which we are not very clear about. The composite supply was always associated with services. For goods, it has come for the first time. So this is something which is an evolving area which we have to see. That's one pain area which means not only for the supply, but there are various other new concepts which we have to digest, we have to understand, deliberate. So that is one pain area which I feel is going to take some time to resolve. Second, I feel that, like you rightly mentioned, that GSTN portal has given a functionality of issuing notices. But I think at present, one of the major issues that most assessors might be facing is that we get notices from various jurisdictions, various government authorities. We get online, we get offline. So tracking of all these notices along with providing all this information is one other challenge. So these are the two pain areas. So government has addressed the industry business issues very well, but the compliance issues, I think it requires more bit of, so strategy wise it is set, but the operationalization, I think it's going to take some time. That's my view.
Hiren, can you explain your second point a bit? Like one notices you're getting, and because you'll have like 20 or 30 registrations, so respective state only will issue. So you are looking forward to like a centralized or a single jurisdiction?
No. So I understand that there will be 27 registration or 37 registrations within India. Now, for one state, we get any officer has a power, whether state authority or a central authority has a power to ask for information. Okay. So we get notices from both the authorities. Plus, the central authority raises notices on the portal. State authorities will raise it manually. So all these are very final points which needs resolution just for doing a ease of, means like Nilanjana said, ease of doing business. These are the point which has to be kept in mind. And I am sure that over a period of time, it will get resolved.
No, I got it. I think so. Your point is more on the concurrent jurisdiction that within one state, there are central, state, might be anti-evasion, preventive, so many wings to trouble you. Okay. No, I think a valid points. Yeah, Amya, any two challenges, pain points you're having while doing GST compliances?
Right. So the one would be the fungibility of input tax credit. So as we know that SGST credit will not be able to use against IGST and CGST. One. Second, the fungibility outside the state. So say for example, a manufacturing unit in Maharashtra would be having some extra IGST input or CGST input that
Right.
cannot be set off against a different state. So fungibility is state-wise, interstate, and then even within the state that S cannot be set off against I or C. Further, further we also have this I to be set off against a certain ratio. So you have to first go through I, then C, and then S. Right. Second would be this return. We cannot revise the return under GST.
Okay.
So like in income tax, we can revise the return, whereas in GST, we cannot do any revision. There can be some human error, some those accounting errors.
No, absolutely. And this revision of return, yesterday, at least in social media, earlier it was coming that they are bringing in facility to amend 3B, but eventually they are ended by some public consultation process will be there. 3B will be totally revamped. So yeah, in fact, this 3B non-revision poses lots and lots of challenges. And yeah, even ITC, it becomes state specific or head specific. Yeah. So yeah, valid points. So Nilanjana, one or two major.
So I think some of the points have already been covered by Hiren and Amya. So another issue I would like to speak about is the input tax credit and the accumulation of input tax credit. So I think many of us would be facing that issue. And currently for accumulated credits, there is no mechanism to, claim a refund from the government other than in case of an inverted duty structure for manufacturers. Other than those cases, there is no mechanism to claim a credit or a refund back from the government. So it becomes a big challenge. It's a blockage of our cash, as well as we get queries from our auditors, etc. That why is there so much of accumulation? Why don't you just write it off? You're never going to get it, etc., etc. And we keep on fighting with them every year. No, this is good cash for us. We will get it someday. And that day we don't know, because I was just talking to my colleague in China. I think even they are facing similar issues. But there the law is that after 4-5 years you get an automatic refund from the government. So I think something of that sort, I believe a lot of representation has already been made to the government to bring some law under which after some years, maybe we can go for, asking the refund and we get it back from the government. But till now, we don't see anything happening there. So this is definitely one of the bigger areas. Then I think, of course, the other issues which I think Hiren and Amya have already covered, the notices coming from various fronts, and so I think broadly.
Yeah, I think major point because sorry, Hiren, you were saying something? Or?
No, I think.
Okay, sure. So I think I fully agree with all of your thoughts, because the whole purpose of bringing GST was to avoid cascading effect, and be it the fungibility of ITC, which Amya mentioned, or accumulation of ITC. So Nilanjana, I think in some of the states also pre-GST, the VAT had a scheme that whatever VAT ITC is left at the end of the year, you can claim as refund. Plus, apart from that, there are multiple industries, be it tractors, footwear, where this credit accumulation, etc., keeps happening. And then they have restrictions like will only grant for inputs, will not grant for input services, and all those things. Yeah, so to that extent, the working capital blockage is there. Secondly, how I see the pain areas from an industry perspective is that still there are a lot of procurements which as corporates we are doing, for which we do not get ITC, which in my view is as fundamental as if you're setting a greenfield or brownfield expansion plant, you're setting up a factory building, you're setting up an office. whatever construction you are undertaking, that is for the purpose of business. If that's not for the purpose of business, then what is it for? You don't get credit for that. So to that extent, the 17.5 ineligible list is very long. Then it is saddled with a lot of legal issues. So from February 2019, the government specifically amended the law that whatever are for statutory requirements like canteen, conveyance for employees you're doing, still advanced rulings are staying to the contrary. So to that extent, I agree that GST has not fully met the expectation of removing the cascading effect. Still, a lot of GST cost gets booked in our P&L account as an expense. It's not a pass through. Second, in my view, one of the pain point which GST is bringing in is the compliance burden. Compliance burden in the sense, I take it from two perspectives. One, if you're purchasing goods or services from me, then, and if you have paid GST to me, then your credit should be protected. Your ITC should not be denied whether I have filed the return, I have uploaded the invoice, I have paid the tax or not. And to that extent, government is trying to make a double recovery. Firstly, they are after me that I should deposit the tax with interest penalty. Then they're after you that you reverse, etc. So to that extent, I feel it's a big pain area and which will be disputed. And secondly, from a compliance perspective, this multiplicity of reconciliation. So one day we were just listing out there's some 14, 15 type of reconciliations which everyone needs to do. One with 3B, one 2A, 2A, 2B, e-way bill, ICE gate, so many. So to that extent, yes, it's still a work in progress, but see, in my view, because it's an indirect tax, eventually it has to be paid by the end consumer only. For industry or taxpayers, how simple it is to implement in your company. That should be the test whether it's a successful tax regime or not. In my view, rate will not matter. Rate will be like more of a government's prerogative, how much tax collections, etc. they have to do. So any thoughts on last one or two points I mentioned, be it this multiplicity of reconciliations, like these become challenging for you, or suppliers not paying the tax, this 2A, 2B and all these things?
I'll just give my thoughts on it. See, one thing with the introduction of GST was clear that government has given a message that everything will be digitized. Right. Now, those companies or those organizations which digitize faster were able to cope up with audits and all the other, notices that we receive. So, of course, there is no option, I think, even if whether we want to do or we don't want to do, but all the reconciliations are required. So, I think that's going to be a part of life. The only point on the ITC, whether we should be, the ITC should get disallowed or not. The one challenge that will come is that all the large organizations will deal only and only with organized sector. Means I will not like to deal with a vendor in an unorganized sector whom I don't know and whom I don't know whether I'll be able to do the reconciliation or not. So that is one area which I think which has to be thought about, that if we have such a stringent requirement of reconciliation, all big large organizations will like to work with similar kind of organization instead of working with some unorganized sector. So that is, I think, one thought that I had on this point.
But hearing to that extent, like, won't it be discouraging more of SMEs because may not be by choice but by design, or because they are not that large and they may be in the process of becoming large, so initially they may have their own set of challenges. So maybe then as a vendor selection process or all those things, will they be out at the first go from large companies?
So means they won't be out, like but of course, if I'm getting an equally good deal, then definitely, and if there is a little more cost that I have to pay for an organized sector, for a larger organization, I will go with it because I don't know the new person. So that sort of differentiation all organizations will do when they have to deal with this kind of reconciliation. See, all large organization who has more than 5,000 crore of turnover will be looking at a monthly reconciliation of at least 50,000 line items, and it's a mammoth task. So everyone will want that to crystallize, to limit their exposure towards this particular area.
Correct. And it's hard cash only, 18%, etc.
Absolutely.
Nilanjana or Amya, any thoughts on these ITC reconciliation or chasing with vendors, how easy or difficult it is? Yeah.
Right. So in our industry, as we are into white goods manufacturing industry, so the challenges arise when we talk about the service thing. So as we know that we have AMC thing when we sell the product. So these AMCs are to be done, say, far-flung areas of India. It can be in Orissa, Bihar, Chennai. So there the service provider, the AMC guy, is not that literate, we can say, not that aware about the GST laws, and they are very small individual sole proprietorship firm. So they do not afford a chartered account, probably a big lawyer, and they have so that creates a very big reconciliation issue from our standpoint. So we are not able to, get 100% comfort from their side.
Yeah. And the example which you're giving, you may not have choices also that.
True. We cannot hire.
You have so many options. So
we cannot have a partner of having 100 crore turnover in for installation services in Odisha.
Right. Correct. No, I think it's quite relatable. Yeah, Nilanjana. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I just had a thought when Hiren was talking about the SMEs. One challenge which we are facing that, when we are doing the reconciliations with the vendors and, wherever we see non-compliance, we are trying to, create systems where we hold back their payment till they, correct those non-compliances, etc. But in case of MSMEs, there is a law which restricts us. We have to make the payment within 45 days. There we have a restriction. There's a clash between the two laws. I cannot hold back their payments for more than 45 days. Whereas, there's no other way for me to compel them to correct their non-compliances. So there is another challenge there. And of course, the multiple reconciliations that we have to keep doing, there's no end to it. We keep on doing it every week, every month, every quarter. And thereafter, chasing after the vendors, getting them to correct the non-compliances, that's becoming a really big challenging task. The cost that we are incurring to get these done, the manpower efforts that is going into it, everything combined, it's becoming a nightmare for the industries.
Great. No, I think that's a valid point. And actually, why I'm spending slightly more time is because this is an issue which every company is facing, and all participants will have some magnitude depending on that. So one just last question to all three of you based on these credit matching or reconciliation. So was the magnitude or quantum significantly higher in first couple of years of GST, and now our mismatches have reduced, and your vendors, be it goods or service suppliers, they are becoming more compliant with each passing day, or it's still the same story only?
No, in our case,
no, I think it is. Yeah. Sorry, Amya, please go on.
Yes, in our case, earlier it used to be of the magnitude of 10 crore around, the unmatched thing. But now it has reduced to 1.5 crore. So it reduced considerably.
Okay. Great. Yeah, Nilanjana.
Yeah, no, I was saying a similar experience that yes, it is becoming much better by every passing day. But yes, we cannot say it's completely zero. And I think the restrictions from the government side and the laws, that they're bringing about, is making us do more reconciliations, more, activities on the vendor side. So of course, I think the work has not reduced, even though we are seeing better compliance from the vendor side, maybe.
Right. And especially, you raised a very valid point that from January 22, once they have brought this 2B or remove that buffer also, then it becomes more like 26 years. Whatever is coming, that's yours. Otherwise, it's Hirenji. Yeah.
So the 26 years is a much larger size in case of GST, I'll say.
Okay.
But overall, I'll also go with the same view So we started the reconciliation right from 2017. Sometime we started in the mid of 2017, September, October. And over the years, we also trained our vendors. So the benefits of it, which we are approving now, is that for us, the reconciliation is not a major issue. From a means of non-uploading is not a major issue. The reconciliation itself is a major issue because you have to follow up. What happens is that some vendor, instead of filing it on the 11th of the month, he will file on the 14th of the month. So I will be missing that credit for that month. I will be taking it in the subsequent month. So those issues are there. But I think overall it has improved over, and I'll say not only a little improvement, but there has been a big improvement in compliance even at across the vendor level. Even in SMEs and MSMEs also there has been an improvement. Of course, the challenge which Nilanjana mentioned is very correct, that we cannot hold the payment of MSMEs. So there is a dichotomy in both the laws, that one says that you cannot create the credit and other says that you cannot even hold back the payment. So, so that has been the experience.
No, I think then, I think if maybe like Amya shared the statistics, or if there is a 70-80% reduction, but yeah, I think we may be approaching towards zero. And I feel even the data points post Jan 22 will significantly be better with each passing month. So yeah, that's also an important pain area which I felt that most of the companies are facing. So we'll move to our next question. Which is considering multiple retrospective amendments, plethora of contradictory decisions of advanced rulings, high courts, there are multiple areas where litigation is bound to arise in future. Which is that one area you feel will see major litigation before finally settling? So I think I'll start with Amya. Amya, what are your thoughts? Any one or two areas where you feel a lot of disputes in coming times?
Again, this dispute would be from our standpoint, it would be from, as we know that there has been a change in law from 1st of January 2022. So earlier it used to be 20%, 10%, and probably 5% as well. So what would be the fate of those unused, probably that credit pre that 1st Jan 2022 era?
Okay. Okay. And so you are saying that there's still a lot of vendors who supplied goods and services pre-Jan 22 has still not deposited the tax, whether that ITC will be denied to us or what will happen. Yeah. Very, very valid question. I think it will be there on everyone's mind. Yeah, Nilanjana?
Yeah, so I think the biggest area that I see where litigations would come in the future is input tax credit again. There are so many reconciliations that the government is asking today, and it has been going on for some time now. So every quarter they would send a notice asking for reconciliation. On every single item, they will try to scrutinize, get into details. And like we were talking about non-compliance on the vendor side. Now that is something which is not entirely in the hands of the SSE. So in those cases, it's a rightful credit which we should get because we have made the payment to the vendor. Whether he has not deposited or not, he has done his filings or not properly is not something we have a control upon. So again, a denial of credit there, and in some cases we get to know much later, by which time it is difficult to reach out to the vendor to get the non-compliances corrected, etc. So I think the biggest area where we will see litigation is definitely input tax credit. Of course, the other legal issues could be there, but I think for every SSE, input tax credit is one area where we cannot avoid litigations, and we are already seeing some part of it. Right. I mean, in ways of blocked credits, etc. I mean, blockage of credit is like without any reason, without any notices, the credits are blocked. At times, it takes us months to get it unblocked. So that is one area we have already seen in the past 2-3 years.
Right. Correct. Yeah, Hiren.
So I think the point of the input tax credit is well covered by Nilanjana and Amay. But I'll just add one more point on it. So I will do the reconciliation based on the GSTR1 that my vendor is filing. But the actual requirement is always that the vendor also makes the payment to the government, which I have no way to know. and I don't know, I will do the reconciliation. I'll assume that the vendor is paid. I don't know what happens next, how they are going to look at it. Suppose the vendor has actually filed a GSTR1, but he has not deposited. What happens then? That is something which is not clear. So ITC, like both of the other panelists has rightly mentioned, is going to be one major issue. And I don't think it's going to get resolved even in any time in the near future. Other area, I think, like I mentioned previously, there are certain new concepts which require a lot of deliberation, a lot of intervention from, higher courts, maybe even by Honorable Supreme Court. Only then such questions will get answered. I think these two, I think, are the major litigation areas. Of course, it's like you mentioned about the retrospective amendment, but see, retrospective amendment, I remember Mr. Jaitley saying in one of the parliament discussion that it's a right of any sovereign nation to do that, and that's what they are doing. So we have to live with it. I don't think we have we have been given any option on it.
Yeah, true. So I think this ITC not deposited, not uploaded by vendor is consistent answer of all three of you. So this will be a disputed area. And in this, I'll add just one point, because statutorily the enabling provision under section 16 has come from January 22 only. So yeah, pre-December 2021, I feel that those credits are well protected as long as these are genuine procurements. You have paid value the goods or services and GST to the vendor. But yes, again, it will travel up to Supreme Court. But yeah, there is a lot of VAT jurisprudence and couple of, I'll not say very direct, but yeah, indirect high court rulings in GST regime also, that you firstly go after the supplier, you don't trouble the recipient at first place. Yeah, but I feel that these will be the disputed topics, but this will be the most disputed topic in times to come. And Hiren, you rightly mentioned that these new evolving topics, be it composite supply, mixed supply, etc., we are witnessing in many industries. And I can tell you from government side, there are no clear guidelines. What is a composite supply, mixed supply? And if you put all the rulings or clarifications at one place, you will find a lot of contradictions amongst them. I think they tilt towards where is the highest rate of tax. If composite leads to that, it takes that. If mix leads to that, so that has been the approach. Plus, one of more area which I'll like to add, and which will be affecting three of your companies and many more consumer facing, is these discounts and incentives. So that also has become a big area, and there are 3 or 4 different issues which we are seeing at ground level. One, if you're issuing a GST credit note, they are asking you prove that these schemes have been pre-communicated. And many times the marketing departments are not those structured. Their main endeavor is that the good should be sold rather than what scheme is there or not. Two, again, in my view, a Herculean task similar to ITC, not deposits. So they are asking that if GST credit note is issued by you, your tax adjustment will be available only if your recipient or customer has reversed ITC. So we are seeing investigations wherever the clients have issued GST credit notes, not financial credit notes, where authorities are saying you bring proof, including 3B of your customers that they have reversed. And the unfortunate part is, in some cases, when departmental authorities are going to distributors or dealers end, they are finding that even though they would have taken GST from you, but still would not have reversed ITC. So those issues are there. Then pre-GST, we used to have an issue whether it's an activity for a consideration or agreeing to do an act. So they are saying it's a service from distributors into this thing. So yeah, this newer concepts, be it composite supply, mixed supply, so many shades of discounts, incentives, ISD cross charge, employee recovery. So many new areas I feel will come to surface. Great. So we'll proceed further with our fourth and second last question. So with last date to issue normal period SCN approaching financial year 17-18, because this question was framed day before yesterday when yesterday's GST Council minutes hadn't come. So this stands extended by a year. So with last date to issue normal period of SCN approaching for financial year 17-18, department has become proactive in recent times in scrutinizing returns, conducting audits, investigations. What are your experiences on departmental's approach at ground level, and how is industry coping up with same? So please give one or two suggestions that can smooth up interaction with departments. So Nilanjana, will start with you. How easy or difficult it is to deal with authorities and ground level, and you have any suggestions which government should or any steps government should take to make it easier?
Yeah, so what we have seen for the past about a year, I would say, is that the government has become very active to issue notices for the GST audits. And what we have seen is they're issuing notices for at a time for 3 years, 4 years, from the beginning till now. And it's a huge task, and they're just sending lists of data which they want us to submit within a particular date, and it's huge. They want everything, kind of every documentation, every kind of supporting that they can think of. And the bigger issue is in case of companies like us who have operations in multiple states, where we may have branches, depots, warehouses, in multiple states. And we do not obviously maintain our financials or trial balances for each of those states. We would have a consolidated all India financial prepared. So the state authorities go ahead and insist for the local state level trial balances or financials, PNLs, and a lot of data which is not there at the state level. And it is very difficult for us to prepare data at that level. Creating a PNL or a trial balance at a state level is very, very complicated. So that is something which we are facing in multiple states, and it's a big challenge. And even if we try to explain to them, they just don't understand. They keep insisting, no, this is something we need from you. Then the documentation which is being asked for, in some cases they even ask for original documents, or they will say, give us all the sales invoices for a particular period. For bigger companies, the volume of sales invoices which is generated in a month, it would take a truck to be hired if we have to give them in a hard copy. So I think yeah, again there I think their mindset change is something which I think is needed. They also need to understand that in some cases a digital format would do equally well. We do not need original copies or maybe even hard copies to be filed. So we can of course give them in a digital format, or they can plan a visit to the location, look at the SAP or the ERP system, check the documents from there, maybe on a sample basis. So yeah, that is one thing. I mean, moving with the times. Of course, everything is digitized now. I think most companies are using ERPs, which are pretty efficient.
Right.
So that is something. And also to understand that certain documentation is very difficult for companies to maintain at a state level. So maybe not insist and work on whatever is available. In fact, I have seen a case where they had asked for the income tax return for that state. I mean,
Okay.
so we had to really go and explain that it is not possible. So, I mean, yeah.
Quite unfortunate only, and that too when there are e-invoicing, GSTR1 is filed. So in recent past, whenever these audits etc. are happening, and when we speak to the clients, their first question is, why do they need, when everything is digitized? I file all my sales returns, my all procurements are known to them. They should have something like AI or ML and analyze themselves and come to the question straight away. But they go back to the basics only, that you give me invoices and all those things. Quite unfortunate. Yeah, Hiren, what's your set of experiences?
So, of course, the data and reconciliation is a major issue. in all the audits, they definitely ask for reconciliation, and it was very clear even in the initial phase of implementation of GST, where everything government was insisting will be digitized. So it's up to the industry now to cope up by implementing proper tools, proper RPAs, to ensure that the reconciliation is in place. My experience has been that what we did was, see, what are the questions that an officer can ask at a very very gross level. He will ask for your annual report to be tied up with your state trial balance. Your state trial balance has to tie up with your GSTR 3B, both input and output. And input and output again has to tie up with your purchase and sales register. These are all the basic level information and reconciliation that they will have. Of course, apart from it, the huge chunk of whatever GSTR 2B has to reconcile with your purchase register. So these are the basic information that an officer will ask. So if you have all this thing ready, after that, officer will scrutinize and identify and ask you some additional questions and all. So that is a other separate, but that is after his scrutiny. But the basic level information, this is what most of the officers are asking. Regarding the hard copies, at least I have not faced such a scenario. They have asked for some test documents, which they said that okay, you provide us some 5% of all your sales invoice for the state or purchase invoices, and we were able to deal with that, because most of the, of course, they do ask that you provide us all your GSTR 2B, you provide us, of course, purchase register, we can provide GSTR 2B is available with us, but they ask for it, we provide it. But overall, what I feel is that if our reconciliations are ready with implementation of proper tools and RPAs, I think audit, though it's a humongous documentative process, but it is still manageable. It's not something that it will, go out of hand or something. So my experience has been not been very bad, but of course, it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, Amya.
Ours, the main issue related to transition credit. So that was one. Second, reconciliation of that 2A and 3B, GSTR 1 and e-way bill. So these were on concern part. Recently, we are facing, for example, we are adding one depot to the that state GST registration. Then the officer want us to meet in person. So rather than providing all the document, they want to meet in person. So that has been a major challenge because we are present in all the 25 states across India. So transition credit and this registration related.
And Amya, how easy or difficult was it, collating all the information, or I understood from Nilanjana that so many information, well, it's quite shocking. They're asking income tax return of the state and these things. Right. So how easy or difficult your experience has been while dealing with them?
Very difficult, actually. Rightly pointed out by Nilanjana, actually. So as for example, in our industry, we provide free of cost supply. So it could be on a target based thing, or could be some discount or rebate. So in the state of Jaipur, the officer asked for last 5 year schemes to be given in hard copy. Okay. So we have schemes of 600 every month. So 600 number multiplied by 12 months, and then for 5 years. So again, we said them that we can provide you in a truckload of detail, actually. True. So, and we sent it through soft copy, but then they said that no, we want it on hard copy only.
Yeah. And I'm not sure whether these people have competence also to commercially understand or those things, and or it becomes more like a tick box thing ki you provide this.
Right.
So I'll share my thoughts, and actually, if I see 5 years of GST, this seems to be more concerning part. One, I see GST or government more to be like a service provider to all the taxpayers. You are paying, well, you are using their services, you are paying money to them, so you should be treated in a special way. But the relationship is other way around. So many times, I think you may also be experiencing that even for information collection, summons are issued. Whereas in my view, these should be a last resort. Firstly, it should be more cordial way that if they want any information, a letter should be sent. If in reasonable time it is not responded, then only someone should be resorted to. So yeah, if there are fraudulent cases, fly-by-night operators, etc., then all those tougher means are needed. Secondly, I've seen at a practical ground level also, if they find a issue, which in their view is an issue, even if it is not, they will insist that you deposit tax now only with interest. So there's a lot of pressure or force is being put on the companies to deposit even if they don't agree. Whereas law clearly provides if they are not agreeable, they should issue a show cause notice. So to that extent, I feel that they take law in their hands. And this finality of issues also I'm seeing is not happening. Like Amaya, you gave example of Tran 1. So we have clients whose one state Tran 1 has been examined 5 or 6 times. One by state, one by center, one by preventive, one by anti-evasion, one by AG, and I don't know which was the sixth one. And out of those 6 people, client insisted all of them that you give it to me in writing that you have verified, and these were the objections. So out of 5, 2 of them gave in writing also. They found everything in order except for these 2 points, and which client paid also. But still, that's of no use to the succeeding officer who is coming, and he will start afresh. So to that extent, even things are not becoming final. In my view, the government should bring in a procedure. Might be, I'm not that aware of direct tax, and you people can share the thought that there should be a process of assessment in GST also if they want to do. Suppose they have a cutoff that any companies whose turnover is above a threshold like 50 crore, 100 crore, will do a formal assessment. You do assessment. Firstly, you provide all the information, you check everything. Whatever legal, non-legal issues are there, it's there. But after that, you don't reinvent the wheel once again. Oh, in that I thought this was missed, so I will issue summons, etc. So that I feel is uh, ever open Pandora box that you never have closure feeling in mind that say my this financial year is closed. So Malab, what are your thoughts and maybe from GST or direct tax perspective? So do things become final in direct tax, in income tax, or you also have that sort of feeling ki GST anytime any issue can come up and we are mentally ready for it? Yeah, yeah, Nilanjana, Hiren, Amya, yeah.
So should I go first?
Yeah, please, please.
Yeah. So I think, of course, in direct tax also the assessment can be reopened after up to a certain number of years. So it is not, it doesn't reach finality once we receive and hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't reach a finality. There is always a chance of reopening. But direct tax has been evolved since now almost 60 years. In case of GST, of course, like you said, one pain area is always that too many notices are sent by various authorities. So the answer to that is that only that we have to be prepared with our data. I don't see anything reaching a finality in any time soon, even for next 5 years. The only way that we can cope up is that to keep all the reconciliations and the details ready. So whoever authorities is going to ask a question, whatever question they're asked, the answer is going to be the same. So that's the approach which I feel the industry should take. And digitization, implementing of proper tools is the only way forward in this GST regime.
Yeah, Niranjana or Ramya, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think I agree with Hiren to his last comment that digitization or automation is definitely the key. I think it is almost humanly impossible to do everything manually. So I think we will all have to eventually move to an automated, process. And I think the government is also moving towards more and more towards digitization and automation. So to cope up with that and to keep up with that, I think the companies also have to move to a digitized mode or an automated mode. And like he said, yes, I agree that we have to keep the reconciliations ready, be ready for any kind of inquiry or any kind of questions that could be raised on these transactions. Maybe preempt what kind of queries could come and keep ourselves prepared to the maximum extent possible. That's the way to be prepared for this. And Puneet, you asked about a comparison with direct tax. I think even there, I would not say that there is ever a finality. So even after assessment, you have a reassessment, you have a scrutiny assessment. There are so many things. So there is never a finality in terms of taxation, especially in India. But yes, I think the key is to be prepared, like Hiren mentioned.
I think it's a valid point. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so rightly pointed out by Hiren and Nilanjana that we'll have to be prepared with our set of data. They can ask state, central, and whosoever can ask. We should be able to provide the data to them.
Great. Great. So we'll come to the last question. Where do you see GST regime in next 5 years in terms of simple law, ease of compliances, least disputes? So what are your one or two expectations from government in future to make GST a good and simple tax? So in this question, actually, we are asking both the perspectives. Practically, what do you see? And aspirationally, what do you want? So yeah, starting with Hiren. Yeah.
Well, aspirationally, the answer is only one. That will be good and simple tax. That will be the aspiration.
Sorry to intervene, but yeah, that has been there for last 5 years, but somehow not meeting up.
I think it's a work in progress. What I will say is that based on my last 5 years experience, the things have evolved. There has been a learning curve, both for the assessees as well as for the government also. And that learning curve is improvising. Next 5 years, I see there will be some more simplification coming into picture. I see that more industries, even SMEs and MSMEs adopting digitization. More and more, of course, there will be monitoring, more and more questions will be asked by the government, and corporates have to cope up with that as they move forward. One or two main areas where I think government, I feel, will action in next 5 years. One is definitely setting up of a tribunal, because in a country like India, where litigation events, it has always been a history. Tribunal is very important. I hear that something was said on the GST Council meeting yesterday. I hope it gets implemented at the earliest. That is one thing. And second thing, this entire concept of one nation, one tax is possible only when we have fuel or petroleum also coming into the GST embed. That is one. I feel that currently whatever petrol or fuel charge that we pay, whatever cost we pay, 50% goes into taxes. There is also a cascading effect. Like you run the poll, and many of the people felt that there is the cascading effect is not gone. Maybe it's because of the petroleum. Because in everything, whatever you do, the petroleum cost is always involved because it's a part of the supply chain. So if that can be addressed and that can be brought into the ambit of GST, I see that overall the cost for the, not only for the industry, but also to the individual citizen in the country, the cost should come down. So I think these are the two expectations which I see that government to implement in the next 5 years. I think one is tribunal, which I'm sure will happen in a short time. I don't know about the petroleum thing. I think we discussed, but I hope it will happen in the next 5 years.
No, I think great thoughts, great expectations. So yeah, on GST tribunal, they have constituted a group of ministers yesterday who will see about all the legal aspects, etc. So I'm not sure how much time it will take because they need to overcome that Supreme Court judgment or all those things. But yes, that's very much need of the hour, because many cases have actually got stuck at commissioner and commissioner appeal stages, who generally tend to favor in terms of revenue only. Yeah, great concluding thoughts, Hiren. So yeah, Amya.
Enabling fungibility of ITC is what I am expecting from to realize the one nation, one tax thing. Again, this moving away of compensation cess is what is also desired. And again, this petroleum product in phased manner can be brought into GST. And last but not least, the simpler compliance regime is what we are expecting.
Great. Yeah, even this compensation cess is also a valid point. So at least whichever the products attract, it significantly increases the burden. Yeah, Nilanjana. Concluding
so I think the next 5 years, I think what we would, wish list would be ease of compliance, definitely. And then for the ITC, moving the burden from the recipient to the supplier. I mean, not penalize the recipients for non-compliance of the suppliers. That is something I think all companies would ask for. Of course, more ease of compliances, like making the compliances easier and faster. And I think, yeah, I'm going to expect that there'll be more digitization from the government side, which could also lead to more litigations, because I believe there'll be a lot of exchange of information between different government departments. Like we are already seeing a lot of that happening, and we'll see more of that in the coming days between the income tax and GST and customs, and all departments speaking to each other, exchanging information. So we'll see more litigations, but of course, like with the setting up of maybe a tribunal at the right level, and then having the judiciaries also performing their duties in the expected manner, hopefully we'll be able to cope up with the litigations as well.
Great. So, if I have to summarize, I think on 5th anniversary, we are still expecting it to be a good and simple tax only. So, yeah, clear laws is the need of the hour. Second, if I can sum up, cascading effect should be removed, be it bringing petroleum products, electricity, etc., into GST net, or removal of compensation cess. 3, I think a very valid point, that a proper judicial framework also need to be there. In my view, apart from constitution of GST 80, I think they should also think of closing advanced rulings, because in my view, every advanced ruling, 80 or 90% advanced rulings are pro-revenue only, and with due respect, many of things are not considered legally, factually things are not considered, which also creates issues which actually never existed also. So in my view, for a proper judicial framework, government should think of either bring advanced ruling mechanism to be totally neutral. So let judiciary or judicial officers do it, but yeah, not two departmental officers sitting together. Thanks, Nilanjana, Hiren, and Amya. Any concluding thoughts or your experience of the session? And otherwise, we'll just wind up. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thanking Nitya for this platform and this opportunity to be on this panel. Thank you so much. And it was a great discussion. I think even Hiren and Amya, thanks so much for your inputs. It was really worthwhile. And of course, we will all, being tax professionals, expect that in the next maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, as soon as possible, we will have really a good and simple tax, and the compliances will be easier, litigations will be lesser, and maybe it's very wishful thinking, but of course, and our responsibility as SSEs, as companies also, we will also have to bear the burden there, and let's hope for a better GST.
So true. Yeah. Hiren, Amya. Yeah.
So, firstly, thank you, Punitji. Thanks, Nitya, for arranging this session. I think it was very insightful. It was nice to hear the experiences both from Nilanjana and Amya on whatever issues they are facing. I think such interactions are required just to know that what other SSEs are facing, what issues they are facing. On the aspirational front, I already mentioned, and we all believe that good and simple tax is an aspiration. And I believe maybe next 5 years, maybe after 5 years, when we discuss again, we will like to go beyond good and simple tax. Something on that we should discuss.
Absolutely. Correct.
So I think let's hope for a better and simpler tax in future.
Yeah. Thanks, Hirenji. Yeah.
Thank you, Punitji, Hiren, and Nilanjana. It was a very insightful session. Thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah. Thanks, Amya, for joining in. And with this, we wrap up our session. So thanks to panelists once again, and thank you for all the participants for joining in large numbers. So with this, we come to the end of the session. So we meet again in this similar format on 6th anniversary. Yeah. Thank you.